Okay, 1 a.m. tutorial time. In today's tutorial, I'm going to be showing you a really simple trigger system in Unity. Basically, this means I'm going to be showing you how you can make like a certain thing happen if you were to interact or get in touch with a certain object. So first of all, let's create a C# script. I'm going to just show you while I just create everything. That's much easier. So open it up. First, you want to delete these two tags. It's not necessary, but I just want to do it anyway. So once that's done, all you have to do is you can actually delete these functions as well. We're not going to be needing this. Now all you have to do is to follow along. First, create a reference to a public game object that you want to activate or deactivate depending on if you were to trigger it or not. So then type in void on trigger enter, and this should automatically create a function. Then again type public void dot trigger exit. This time you should get it over here, and this should automatically create a function as well. So don't worry about the public and private, it doesn't really matter since we're not going to be referencing it from outside the script. So now type in the game object's name and type in set active and give it a value of true. So this happens when we enter the trigger, and just copy it again and set it false for the second option under there. So if we were to save this and head back into Unity, this might take a little time. So once that's out of the way, all you have to do is to just create a object that you want to work as a trigger. For now, I'm going to create a cube. Then if the cube already has a box collider, don't worry about it. Right click, create an empty, and call it trigger or whatever you want to do it. Now add a box collider to it. Make sure to mark it as a trigger or else it will not work. Now extend the box collider radius just a little bit so that the player is able to interact with it when it gets too close. So once this is done, all I have to do is to drag and drop the script that we created. Now let's create a UI object that that'll just activate if we were to get too close to the cube itself. I'm just going to type in interact, and I'm going to turn this game object off because we wanted to manually turn it on when we get too close to the cube or we get into the trigger zone. So now if you go to the trigger zone, nothing will happen because we haven't made a reference to it in the script. In the script, in the empty slot, drag and drop the game object that you want to active, and that should apparently give you no more errors. And now if you were to get too close, interact, and if you get out of the interact, like the trigger zone, it will turn the game object off. So that's the very basic thing, like it's the bare bone basic. So now let's make it a little bit advanced. So in some cases there might be other types of colliders and objects in like colliding with the trigger zone. So for this we want to create a function that will identify the player itself. So we want to use a other dot compare tag. This is because the collider is set as other over there, and then we want to use the tag player, but in this case I'm just going to use a custom tag. I'm going to set your mom for some reason, and if it gets to your mom, then we want to turn the game object on, and in other case not. So do the same here, and just going to type in false. So now if I were to save this and head back into Unity, it should apparently work. And now if we were to, let's say, as you can see, the cube, if you were to go ahead here and add a tag, now make sure to type in the exact same name or else it will not work. So I'm gonna just add this to tag it as a your mom over there. Once I have tagged it as your mom, now it should be able to interact. But then if I were to tag it as player, as you can see it's tagged as player now, nothing happens. So yep, that's how you can basically make the collider only collide with a certain object. So let's make it a little bit more advanced. So what if there are multiple objects that you want to set active on the trigger? So for this we're going to create an array. For array, just do this in the game object, and when you do this it should throw an error to the previous executing function. So what we want to do now, we want to create a for each loop. So just go ahead and follow me, just type this for each thing in it, and then make a game object, call it underscore game object or what you want to do. Then we want to give it a in value, and we want to reference the two active objects in it, and like this, to active. Now we want to go ahead and make some curly brackets over there, and then yeah, it should be fine. Now what we want to do is to reference that game object, the smaller one right over there, and then we want to set this active as true for this case and false for the other one if we were to get out of the trigger zone. So I'm going to just copy this entire function and then paste it here as well. I'm just going to set this to false because we want to turn it off if we were to get out of the trigger zone. So now let's hit save and head back into Unity. This might take a little bit of time. And yeah, so now when we're into Unity, now we should see that under the trigger we have something like this. So now if we were to type 2, then it will give us 2 slots for 2 different game objects to active at the same time. Type 1 and we get 1, 2. You can type as many as you wanna, and you can also like sort of, I'm just going to show you a little trick. I'm just going to create another game object to active because since we only have one in the scene, and I'm going to just move it a little bit upwards for, you know, just to make able to properly see it. I'm just going to change it to y-axis, just going to make it a little bit up, and I'm going to turn this off because we want to turn it on when we hit the trigger zone. Now we can do a tiny little trick. I'm just going to set it to 2. We can drag and drop, but at the same time we can do another thing. We can just dock the inspector over there and we can drag and drop the both objects at the same time. This is like to save the time, so it's like, you know, I don't know why I'm doing this, but you get the idea. You can also do it manually, but I just showed it. It's pretty cool, so I just wanted to show this to you. So once that is done, now if I were to go into the game, make sure to mark the player as your mom. Now if I hit play and get close to the cube itself, and as you can see, yay, interact. 2 of the game objects are set active at the same time. So yep, that's pretty much it. So you can do this for any type of object, not only one. You can have multiple objects, not only 2. You can have like 10, 20, I don't know, a lot of it. And you can not only just active like game objects, you can do much more things with this. Have certain features in the game object. You can actually call certain things to happen from different scripts. If you were to like, you know, like make a reference for the script and then use that reference and that game object to directly like call a function from a different script, you can use it to like, you know, switch scenes and you'll make a level end scene, or you can make it like a player end, like, you know, game over type of thing. So let's make it even more advanced. Like on the very beginner friendly level, let's make it so that we can define if we can interact or not. For this, create a public boolean or a public bool, and let me just call it can interact, and by default we want to set this to true. And now what we want to do is to go into the if statements, and over here we want to type 2 and I don't know what to call it, but just these are symbols, and then we want to call like can interact to this, and then we want to use 2 equal signs and we want to set it to true. So let me just real quick tell you what's happening on the screen right now. Basically, by using these 2 ands and the boolean, we're telling the script, or the function, to like detect if it's true or not. If it's true, then we can interact, and if it's false, we cannot interact. So I will just do it on the trigger enter because that's when we interact. We don't need to do it for the other one because that's literally not gonna happen unless we are already able to interact. So now if we were to save it and go back into Unity, you should get a field on the trigger script can interact, and if we were to untick this, because it's a true or false value of a boolean can be true or false. Now even if we have everything set up, we still cannot interact. Now this is an interesting feature, and you can like use it in many different ways, such as to define this from like a different script, call it from like a different script to, you know, like determine if you can interact with an object or not. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the tutorial. Just if you want to like watch more tutorials like this, then stay tuned to the channel. I'm going to be making more of these tutorials, and also I'm going to be making a advanced interactable dialogue system. So yeah, stay tuned if you want to watch those things. So yep, see ya.